Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Let me begin with a small prayer. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Shri Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Bharati Karuna Patram Bharati Padabhushanam Bharati Padamarudham Bharati Tirthamashraye Vidya Vinaya Sampannam Vitaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tattvakyam Vidushekara Bharati. Good evening and a very warm welcome to yet another session of Weekend with Wisdom. As you know, this weekend our guest is Swami Swatmanandaji, who is joining all the way from Mumbai. And yesterday he spoke at length about the topic is from Shravanam to Samadhi. He spoke at length on the Sadhana Chatushtayam, on Shravana, Manana, etc. And now Swamiji will further shed more light on this as well as on the topic of Samadhi. So without further much ado, I request Swamiji to start the session. Swamiji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Nitinji. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Hari Om, and my salutations to one and all. It is said that learning happens in 4 stages. Acharyat padam adatte, padam shishya swamedhaya, padam sa brahmacharibhyah, padam kala kramena cha. This is a beautiful subhashita. 25% one learns at the feet of a teacher. Acharyat padam adatte. Padam shishya swamedhaya, by the reflection of the student by oneself. Padam sab brahmacharibhyah, another 25% by discussion with the co-seekers. Padam kala kramena cha, and 25% in time. So when we do Shravanam, as we saw yesterday, Shravanam means to determine the essence, and to help us determine the essence, the Shadvidha Linga we can apply. So to determine the essence, that what is the essence of Vedanta and how Advitiya Vastu is the main essence of Vedanta, that is called Shravanam. And if the mind is ready, 100% realization happens only through Shravanam. If the mind is not yet ready, then it requires Mananam Nididhyasana. So this Mananam we saw yesterday is Vedanta Anuguna Yuktibihi Anuchintanam. The logic which is in line with Vedanta, one should use that logic and clear the doubts that one has through continuous reflection. So this reflection happens in 2 stages. One stage is where we reflect by ourselves. Take up any declaration of the Upanishads and reflect. Suppose we say Ajo Nitya Shashvatoyam Puranaha. I am Aja, I am Nitya, means unborn, eternal. Purana, most ancient. Now, how can I be unborn? Now the reflection starts. So, Adam Shishya Swamedhaya, 25% reflection must be done first by ourselves. And what are the doubts that come up that we should become aware of first? Then we should also discuss with the co-seekers or discuss with the, if the questions are there, go to the teacher, ask the doubts to the teacher. So the group reflection also brings about different standpoints, certain clarity. If each one has done their reflection, then together we come, and then in satsang we discuss, we clear our doubts, express the doubts to each other. And that also is a very powerful method of reflection. So individual reflection, group reflection, both should be done. And in the Chinmay mission, Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayanand set up this tradition right from the beginning, that the study groups are formed and one studies a scheme of books in a prescribed order, in a certain hierarchy, so that the graded understanding properly, systematically is formed. And it is a discussion group where there is a trained sevak who also is attending other texts and higher texts and gaining knowledge, and who also is doing the reflection sadhana and facilitating a group discussion. So through that group discussion, then one can go deeper, raise questions, clarify the doubts, and proceed further. So yesterday we saw about these two sadhanas, Shravanam and Mananam. We also saw how Shravanam removes the ignorance by when we say, I don't know the truth. By listening, we get over that ignorance. Then there are bound to be doubts. Anybody who listens to Vedanta for the first time, if the doubt does not arise, that means one has not heard properly. Because the doubts will arise, they are contrary to the knowledge that we have about ourselves. So the doubt is definitely bound to arise. How can the world not be real? How can I not be this body? How can happiness not be in the world outside? So many doubts will be there. Those doubts have to be clarified based on the scriptural logic. So I don't know removes is gone by Shravanam. I can't understand goes by Mananam. The result of Shravanam is determination of the essence. Result of Mananam is intellectual conviction. If these two are done properly, then the third step will happen, that is Nididhyasan. So Nididhyasan means contemplation. Dhya is the dhatu. Generally one translates as meditation, but meditation is not a verb. The word meditation is a noun. And so it indicates the state of consciousness. Like we say, waking is a state. Now you can't do waking. One can be in the waking state. So technically we can't do meditation. We can be in meditation, which is the fourth state of awareness, which is the nature of the self. So that state of awareness where I'm effortlessly aware of my divine nature, that is called meditation. Dhyanam nama swarupasya sahajam bhanam uchyate. Sahaj bhan, effortless awareness. Today how I'm aware effortlessly, I'm a man, I'm a human being. Nobody has to tell, nobody has to remind. Effortlessly one is aware. In that way, effortlessly one is aware of one's own swarupa as Sachidananda. Dhyanam nama swarupasya sahajam bhanam uchyate. But how will that sahaj bhan happen? Through nididhyasan. So the practice that leads to the abidance in that state is called contemplation, nididhyasan. If one has done Shravanam properly, Mananam properly, nididhyasan will happen automatically. Why is nididhyasan even required? Because I may have studied and I may logically also understand that my nature is consciousness, I am not this body, Now intellectual clarity has come, conviction has come. What is important is abidance in that knowledge. So there are these three aspects. One is knowledge, other is conviction, third is abidance. We don't live by our knowledge, we live by our conviction. And that's why mananam is very important. Knowledge everyone has. We all know that smoking is bad for health. But the doctor who knows it also may be smoking. Because the doctor is convinced that happiness is there in smoking and I will smoke. Even though knowledge is there. So that knowledge which is not transformed into conviction is not going to change my life. I may know intellectually I am not the body, but I will still live as the body because intellectually that knowledge I have not transformed into my conviction. I am still convinced I am this body only. So that knowledge has not gone deep and transformed my thinking and consequently my behavior. It has not changed. So like that, many such things. We know anger is bad, but we are convinced in some part of our mind that anger is necessary to get things done and nothing can get done without anger. So anger thrives in our personality. So we live, first step is to transform this knowledge into conviction. The job of any pramana is only to give the knowledge. How I use that knowledge is my responsibility. Like the eyes, they can only show me the form. I can see this computer, I can see the thermos, I can see the book. The job of the eye is only to give the knowledge. Pramanam jnapakam, natu karakam. It does not do anything else. How I will use that knowledge is my responsibility. Now, if there is a book, then I can open it, I can read it, I can put it aside. That what I do with that knowledge is my responsibility. What happens is many times we think that knowledge itself should transform. Oh, Swamiji, I've been studying Vedanta for so many years, nothing happened. One famous anecdote of Gurudev's life is one person went to Gurudev and said, Swamiji, I have gone through the Gita thrice, nothing has happened to me. My life is same as before. So Gurudev told him, nothing will happen. You may have gone through the Gita thrice, but has the Gita gone through you once? The Gita has gone through you once means, have you reflected upon it and transformed that knowledge into your conviction? Then it will change. So pramanam jnapakam natu karakam. Pramanam will only give the knowledge. So Shruti Pramana is there, Vedanta is there. It will give us the knowledge you are Brahman. Now, how to use that knowledge is my responsibility. And that's why Mananam is very important. So if knowledge has just been heard or one has done Shravanam, one has to do Mananam next. There's a very nice example that Puja Gurudev gives about Mananam. So I will just need to share that and then we go on to Nididhyasan. If you can give me the sharing rights.
Yes, Swamiji, just a second.
Yeah.
Koti?
Yes, Swamiji, you can share now.
Yes.
Iti das. Das means in the last 19 verses, Guhyatamam. Guhya, secret. Guhyatara, more secret. Guhyatama, most secret. Comparative and superlative. So, Guhyatama, the highest secret. Idam, Shastram, idam, uktam. Shastram, science. This highest secret science of reality, idam uktam, I have already told you. Maya, by me, hey Anakha, oh, attentive student, who is bringing all his mind in single-pointed attention. Etad buddhva. Having understood what I said so far intellectually. Buddhiman syad, may you become a buddhiman, a wise man. It is unnecessary repetition, isn't it? Having known this, may you be a wise man. Hey? It's because you come from the office ready to fight with anybody, including your wife. Because that is the only place where you can really fight. In any other place, they may give you back. Here there is nothing. It's a Hindu wife. And nothing there in the house that I can quarrel with. Everything spick and span. Spit and polished, everything. I am choking to bring out my repressions and suppressions in my office and in the marketplace, the disappointments and dejections, the insults that I received and the unjustifiable kicks that I got in life. I want to pour it out, but there's no chance. And as soon as I sat down on the table, the tea came. If it is late, I can howl. You did not know that I am coming here. Why didn't you prepare? She is preparing the tea in the kitchen. And if she had brought the tea, that is sufficient. If she is well dressed, why are you dressed up like that? If you are not dressed up, can't you not at least take a bath and take a... Don't you know that I am coming? Look like a devil? Somewhere. So she knows it by her experience of last 20 years. So she selected the youngest child. Baby, go and give it to Papa. Now, you can't howl at him because he will not understand. You will just look at him. Observing and watching the ugliness on your face. He won't understand. And if you are talking too long for him, he will suck his thumb. He will not understand. So it's useless. You kept it there. You lifted the cup and seen whether it is spilt in the cup. Then that is to do. No, it is not spilt. You looked at all the sides of the cup, it is all clean. Okay. You lifted it. Very disappointed, because he has not been able to give. The moment the tea touched your lips, got a chance. You kept that cup there and started howling at the wife. Can't you not give me some sugar? Am I not the earning member? Am I not feeding you every time? Can't you not give me some sugar? Maybe in your house, your parents have taught you how to drink without sugar. In my house, it is not so. From childhood onwards, we have been taking sugar. Went on and on and on, and she always allows you to go on. Why? It is a relief for you. At the end of it, when you are silent, she says, I have put sugar in it. That is sufficient. Another wave of, you have put sugar. As if I don't know the taste of sugar. Maybe you don't know the taste of sugar, because in your house you never got to taste. It is only after coming to my house that you have taken a lot of it. She allows you. So in the two waves, half of, or more than half of the suppressions have gone. Then he says, she from the kitchen howls out, the spoon is in the saucer! Spoon is in the saucer, as if I can't see it. And you take the spoon, and you can't hold the spoon like that. So you do what the spoon should do. So clockwise 3 times, anti-clockwise 4 times, and then sideways and lengthways. All the time you are howling at her that you can't put sugar on top, that sugar, and then lifted the cup. There is param shanti. utter peace, complete silence, total satisfaction. It is at that time, if that woman is really a Hindu woman, she will cry out from the kitchen, "You want more sugar?" If anybody asks that, you can understand, it's a Hindu woman, ready to serve the husband. When utter silence has come, you know that you have put the sugar, it is nothing, they will ask the question. Now here it is. The sugar was in the cup, and yet there was no taste, because it was not shaken. It's only on shaking that the sugar dissolves and goes between every molecule of the water, liquid in it, that it is on the top, middle and the bottom of the same texture of sweetness, and there is total satisfaction. Okay? Into the cup of your head, 15 chapters of the Gita has been put there. Yet your life is as bitter, no sweetness at all. Why? It has not been shaken. That shaking is done by the spoon of the mind. In the intellect you have got all the ideas. But it doesn't add sweetness to your thoughts, your ideas, your concepts, your vision, your imagination. No. It's all selfish at this moment. Shake it. Shake it with the mind, clockwise and anti-clockwise. That is called a reflection. You have to independently think about it.
So that was the beautiful analogy that Gurudev gave about reflection and how one should think independently. Just like that sugar is there, it will not add sweetness until shaken. We may listen to Vedanta, but it will not transform our vision unless we think. Now, one very important point to understand in this reflection is, especially when we are intellect oriented, we want more and more logic and reasoning, then one should think like a non-believer or an atheist. Without any assumptions, one should question. Every single thing one can question. And in Vedanta, there is no prohibition on questioning. In fact, questioning is encouraged. So while doing the reflection, one should question every single thing. And the more fundamental question which is asked, the more deeper is the answer. So if it is said, I am unborn, then why is it that I am unborn? Even that which is non-existent entity is also unborn. Think about that. So the self is unborn, and non-existent entity also is unborn. The horns on the head of a man, they are unborn because they don't exist. So then is self unborn? And what is the difference between the self being unborn and this asat, non-existent entity being unborn? So one should question. Then one will come to proper clarity. So if we think without keeping any assumptions, every single aspect, if we question, we will come to the most fundamental clarity, and then there is no room for confusion. So the non-existent entity also is unborn, but it is non-existent. So it does not even come into being, it does not exist, nor any impact it has. But self is existent entity. The nature of self is existence. And it is unborn, meaning it is ever present. And it is there even right now. and it will never become absent. So ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranaha. It is unborn, it is unchanging, it is undecaying, undying. All of them are all the qualities of the self. So if one starts questioning that way and one finds answers, one reflects, one thinks. If one doesn't find answers, one discusses with fellow seekers, one goes to the teacher, asks the question. That kind of reflection is very important to gain intellectual conviction. Because if we are convinced by something, we will live by that. Now, knowledge can transform into conviction by reflection. But that conviction alone is not enough. There is contrary experience also that we have, which we have to handle. So I may be intellectually convinced I am Brahman, but the Dehatma Bhav is there for lifetimes. So Bhavana has to change. That is where Nididhyasan comes in. To transform intellectual conviction into experience or abidance, Nididhyasan is important. So now let us see what is the meaning of Nididhyasan. So Swami Sadanandji in Vedansar, he defines Nididhyasan as Vijatiya Dehadi Pratyaya Rahita Advitiya Vastu Sajatiya Pratyaya Pravaho Nididhyasanam. So what is the meaning of Nididhyasan? Vijatiya Dehadi Pratyaya Rahita. First aspect is there is a contrary experience we have. Though I may be intellectually convinced, one part of my intellect says I am Brahman, I am not this body, the world is not real, there is only Brahman everywhere. Intellectually now convinced. Still the bhavana is I am this body, I am the jiva, I am sukhi, I am dukhi, I am successful, I am miserable, and happiness is in the world. These are my people, these are not my people. That feeling is still there. To detach from all that and to continuously think about non-dual Brahman, Advitiya Vastu Sajatiya Pratyaya Pravaha. The mind flows steadily towards Brahman, having detached from the thoughts about the body, mind, intellect, and the world. So in two words, Nididhyasan means detach, attach. Detach from the lower, attach to the highest. And that is what one has to do in Nididhyasan. Continuously, if I do that, the Dehatma Bhav will be replaced with Brahma Bhav. So to transform that feeling of ours, we have Viparita Bhavana right now, which is the contrary experience. Though intellectually I know I am Brahman, I still feel I am the Jiva. So I live like a Jiva. So the knowledge transforms to conviction, conviction transforms to abidance. To transform this conviction into abidance, Nididhyasan has to be done. In Nididhyasan, there is no Shravanam, one is not listening to anything. There is no logic being utilized. There is no reasoning, no extra thinking, nothing. One is just using the mantras of the Upanishads and chanting the mantra. Let us say, if we say same mantra from Kathopanishad, Ajo Nitya Shashvatoyam Puranaha. Now what will one do in Nididhyasan? I am Ajaha. One will not think that some consciousness is Aja. What will one feel? I am Aja. Who is that I? Consciousness. I am that consciousness which is Aja. I am not the body. Body is born. I am consciousness. Now I am saying these words because we are explaining here. But in Nididhyasan, one doesn't say these words. One just says, Ajo Nitya Shashvatoyam Puranaha Na Hanyate Hanyamane Sharire. Now one is chanting the mantra slowly and lifting the mind to the state that consciousness which is Aja, I am that. That's it. How I am Aja, why I am not the body, body may be born, I am not born, what is the logic behind me not being born? All that is done in reflection state. In Nididhyasan, one is not doing any of that. If we give simple example, And see, this we do every day in life also. So the process of nididhyasana is not something very, very difficult. Suppose we say, Prakash, come here. Now, in the people in front of me, if there is somebody called Prakash, and I call out, Prakash, come here, what will happen? The person is not thinking that, oh, somebody called Prakash is being called. Objectification is not happening of somebody else. The person whose name is Prakash identifies saying, okay, I am being called, not somebody else is being called. So no objectification is happening. Person is not getting stuck to word. Person is not getting stuck to the meaning of the word. Prakash means light, so light is being called. No, person has dropped objectification, has dropped the word, it has dropped the meaning of the word. But what does that word indicate? I. So that person comes, being I am being called. So Prakash come here translates to I have to go there in the mind of that person. He has dropped the word Prakash, he has dropped the word meaning that Prakash means light. And he says, I am that Prakash. So I am being called. Same way, when we say Ajaha, consciousness is unborn. It's not some consciousness is unborn. So one drops objectifying, one drops the word Ajaha, one drops the meaning of the word unborn. What is that indicating? I am that consciousness which is unborn. I am unborn. So the aham vritti, where one was thinking till now, I am the jiva, I am this, I am that dehatma bhav which is there, this small aham vritti which is there, that is now replaced with brahma bhav. Steadily, if I contemplate this way, using the pointers, and that's why we don't need long, in Nididhyasana one, it is not chanting. Suppose there are 19 verses in Brahma Jnanavali. In Nididhyasana, I'm not chanting all the 19 verses. Then that is not Nididhyasana. Then I'm chanting. That is a different sadhana. I may use just one shloka or even 1/4 of the shloka. Nityoham, Niravadyoham, Nirakaroham evacha. Just that much, 1/2 of the shloka. I am Nitya. I am unknowable. Niravadyoham. Nirakaroham evacha. I am formless. Now on these 3 words, Nitya, Niravadya, Nirakara, one is contemplating that I am that, I am not this. This I am not this has to be done for some time. And assertion of who I am has to be done. So negating who I am not, asserting who I am, detached from who I am not, attached to who I am. That process, when we keep doing, that dehatma bhav will go. And that's why you will find in a lot of literature which is meant for Nididhyasana, more emphasis is on negation, because the dehatma bhav is very strong in us. Even if intellectually I'm convinced that bhavana is very, very strong. That bhavana can be transformed only through Nididhyasana. And that is the goal, to transform the feeling of finitude. To let go, actually, not transform. To just drop that feeling of finitude because it is wrong, it is false, it is unreal. The purpose is not to become blank or thoughtless. The purpose is to realize my nature as Brahman. And that is why Nididhyasana is a very, very important step. It will happen, spontaneously when the mananam has become very clear. All doubts have been removed. Then spontaneously one sits in contemplation and the mind is lifted to that higher state. That process is called Nididhyasana, where we lift the mind. Eknath Ishwaran gives a very nice example for it. He would say that there is a bucket of water, and if you drop a coin, now the water is clean, crystal clear. How the coin will just fall inside gradually. In the same way, use the pointers of the truth and let them just fall in the mind. Don't do any association of ideas, no logic, no objectification, nothing. Just contemplate on those words. So different compositions are there, like we spoke yesterday: Brahma Jnanavali, Atma Shatakam, Nirvana Shatakam, Dakshinamurti Stotram. Various mantras of the Upanishads are there. Even Bhagavad Gita, so many pointers of the self are there. Hastamalaka Stotram is there. Lots of them are there to do Nididhyasan. What is important is that we should know what should be done in Nididhyasan. It is not mechanically repeating the verse, Asangoham, 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 Puna Punaha. It is not chanting. It is not mechanically repeating. It is not following association of ideas. It is not visualizing some being or some light or any such thing. It is not being just blank or thoughtless. It is not concentration of the mind, because concentration is exclusive. To the exclusion of everything else, it is focus on one support. That is ekagrata, which we saw yesterday is a prerequisite even before Shravanam. Chittam ekagrata comes before Shravanam also. So Nididhyasan is not ekagrata. Though Nididhyasan is to be done with ekagrata, but Nididhyasan is not concentration. Concentration is exclusive. Nididhyasan is all inclusive. It is to be aware of that consciousness which is everywhere. You're not focusing on one support. So it is to be aware of who I am truly and to negate who I am not. So these two things have to be done. And that's what he says here also. Vijatiya dehadi pratyaya rahita. That is detachment from what I am not. Then advitiya vastu sajatiya pratyaya pravaha. Continuous flow of thoughts towards a non-dual Brahman. That is called Nididhyasan. Nididhyasanam. Now, if I do this steady contemplation, the thoughts that I have about I, one may say, okay, I am going to do the Nididhyasan only for some half an hour, 1 hour in the morning, but through the day I am living like a jiva only. So how does Nididhyasan help? It helps a lot, because whatever is sent in a quiet mind, it will go deep and transform. Even lot of this affirmations, hypnosis, all that works in the same principle. Nididhyasan works much deeper than that. In affirmations, etc., we are training the mind to hold on to a certain attitude, where it is still finite. In Nididhyasan, we are going much beyond. The very realm of mind itself we are dropping. So in a quiet mind, when it is sent deep, the thought process only will change completely. So I will know that I am Brahman through my reflection, etc. The conviction has come. Then that person who does regular Nididhyasan, even though it is half an hour or 1 hour in the day, the impact of that will continue through the day. That while doing action also one knows this is a role, I am not this. Of course, it takes steady practice to come to that state. It does not happen overnight, or just 1 or 2 days we start doing something. It doesn't happen, which happens in every other sadhana also. So continuously when we do Nididhyasan, then the Viparit Bhavana changes. And which is what the Gita also says, that to do this Nididhyasan, the head and the heart must come together. If the head and heart are not together, intellectually I may say I am Brahman, but my heart is still saying, I am the body only. My mind is still saying I am this body only. That's why conviction, clarity, when it is attained through Shravan, Manan, then Nididhyasan one is doing, one has Vairagya, one has withdrawn from everything else. The mind is not running behind anything. Otherwise, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. The moment we say Shivoham Shivoham, maybe I remember my servant called Shiva, and then this Shiva, what he did to me, he took away the money and he ran away, and I treated him so well and he treated me so badly. And then from there it goes to some Shivsagar restaurant, some ice cream, some food, some friends, some fight. How nididhyasana will happen steadily? Because the mind is still attached to so many other things. But if that mind is tuned well, Shravan, Man and Manan are done properly, then nididhyasana will happen beautifully. Steady contemplation, the mind will not get deviated, distracted like this. Even if it does, very less it will be. The vikshepa will be very, very less, minimum. So in the Sthita Prajna Lakshan in the second chapter in the Gita, Bhagavan says very clearly, Nasti buddhihi ayuktasya. One who is not integrated, who has not done karma yoga, upasana, shravan, manan, has not cultivated the fourfold qualification. Nasti buddhi ayuktasya. The head and heart are not together. Nacha ayuktasya bhavana. If the person is not integrated, this steady contemplation, which is bhavana, it will not arise. One cannot do steady contemplation. Nacha bhavayata shanti. And if one cannot do steady contemplation, how will one get peace of the self? Ashantasya kutas sukham. And when there is no shanti of the self, where is sukha? There is only some temporary pleasure. So very important it is to do our preparation earlier and then do the nididhyasana. Gurudev Swami Chinmayanand used to say that's why that this is the highest vocation in life. Contemplation is the highest vocation in life. All our sadhana is to prepare for this contemplation. Karma yoga, upasana, the sadhan chatushtaya, guru upasati, shravan, manan is all to prepare for that steady contemplation. The job of a sannyasi is nididhyasana. And this country has revered this practice, and that's why sadhus and sannyasis are given so much of man and respect, that the society supports them through bhiksha, etc. That sadhu doesn't have to work to earn the livelihood. If the mind is ready, the society says you go ahead, contemplate and do your sadhana. We will give the bhiksha, because if you get liberated, you realize the self, whole earth will rejoice. Nityante devataha sanatha cheyam bhurbhavati, Narad Bhakti Sutra says. Modante pitarau nityante devataha sanatha cheyam bhurbhavati. This whole earth will as though get a lord. The ancestors will rejoice, the devatas will be happy, and of course the society will benefit from the presence of that great master. So this, in fact, the preparation of whole life for everybody, not only for a sadhu or sannyasi, is to come to that state of nididhyasana. Why are 4 ashrams given to us? Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. It is said everybody must die as a sannyasi in our culture. Meaning, come to that state of realization, because that is what the human body is meant for. Yesterday we saw Atmava Are Drashtavyaha, Shrotavyaha, Mantavyaha, Nididhyasitavyaha. So this Nididhyasana is the practice to be done. All the practices are for steady contemplation, where emotions and heart, emotions and the thoughts, they have integrated, and one is doing steady contemplation on the self. The intensity with which one is contemplating, that involves the feeling, and the pointers of the truth, which one is asserting again and again, and dropping the false identification, that involves the head. So if both head and heart are involved, one will come to the higher state of realization. Now, this nididhyasana, when it is done steadily, see, I am speaking right now about Jnana Marga. What about bhakti? Same process happens in bhakti also. In bhakti also, if you see, Shravan is the first step. It is said Krishna Bhagavan used to enter the house of the gopis through the window. Why he went through the window? Why not through the door? Symbolism is Bhagavan enters our heart through the ears. The katha Shravan has to happen. When we listen to the katha, if the mind is purified, then and there realization happens. So same Siddhanta of Vedanta applies in bhakti also. If not, reflect more and more on the Katha of Bhagwan and do the sadhana, remember the Lord, surrender to Bhagwan. And as he said in the 12th chapter, Mayyeva mana adhatsva, Mayi buddhim niveshaya, nivasishyasi mayyeva ata urdhvam na samshaya. You surrender your mind and intellect to me, and you will come to abide in me. There is no doubt in that, he says. Same thing in Nididhyasan. Only difference is here the sadhak is putting all the great effort. In Bhakti Marg, the devotee surrenders to Bhagwan, and Bhagwan says, Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. In the 10th chapter, he says, I give them that buddhi yoga by which they will come to me. So process is the same. Don't worry. Oh, in this it is like this, in that it is the same process in Bhakti and Jnana Marg. Just one is Ishwar Pradhan, one is Jiva Purusharth Pradhan. That's the only difference. So if this Nididhyasan is done steadily, then what will happen? In general, we say the Brahma Bhavana will replace the Deha Bhavana, and then a person comes to ultimately wake up to the truth. But technically speaking, what happens? So here it is said that person will go into the state of Samadhi. Please remember, Nididhyasan means to withdraw the attention from outside to the body, from the body to the breath, from the breath to the mind, from the mind to the intellect, and then go beyond the ego. It is a systematic process of withdrawal and steady contemplation to drop all identification with the BMI and the world. And that's why memory plays a big role in Nididhyasan, that what I am contemplating upon, I should remember those words very clearly. That's why I said long, chanting is not required. Just that one line or one shloka is enough. But I should remember, I can't open the book suddenly and start reading Asangoham because I forgot the shloka. Then the whole process of withdrawal has gone for a waste. Again, I'm extroverted. So how to do Nididhyasan? First step, learn to withdraw the attention. First step is memorize which is the shloka or the mantra which I want to contemplate upon. Memorize that. Do the reflection on that, clear the doubts about that. All that has to be done before. Once that is done, then I sit quietly, withdraw the attention from body, mind, intellect, and the ego, and repeat that mantra slowly when the mind has become quiet. So from the outside, we focus on the body, relax the whole body. From that, we go to breath, focus only on the breathing, inhalation, exhalation. Prana Vikshana Ramana Maharshi called. Then from there, come to this, either this space between the two eyebrows or the heart. These are two places, either of the two places one can use to make the mind single pointed. So invoke the form of the Lord if you have an Ishta Devata, or if you are doing, Sagun Nirakar Upasana of Omkar, then just chant Omkar and focus on the sound. Whichever Upasana one is doing, focus the mind, make it calm and quiet. Then with the intellect, remember the mantra, Vedantic mantra, which one wants to contemplate upon, on which one wants to do Nididhyasan. And slowly repeat that mantra. Lift the mind to the identity conveyed in that mantra. If the mind wanders into something else, bring it back to the mantra. Suppose one is saying Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham and the mind has wandered. Again bring it back to Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham, lift it to that state. Don't think that why it is wandering after so many days of practice also it is still wandering, my mind is still attached, or what is the reason of its wandering? Oh, this particular memory, I have to sort it out. Now let me think about that. Drop any of those associations. If at all anything has to be done, later on one can do. If the mind has wandered, gently bring it back, again continue the Nididhyasan. This process has to be done repeatedly. Evam nirantarabhyasta brahmaivasmiti vasana harati avidya vikshepan roganiva rasayanam. In Atmabodh, Shankaracharya ji said, Nirantar Abhyasta. A continuous practice has to be done of this. It's not going to happen just overnight. If somebody says 7 days, 7 days course to realization, nobody will realize in 7 days. Some Uttam Adhikari may realize instantly, but majority we will not. Evam Nirantar Abhyasta, continuously one has to do this Nididhyasan practice. Then what will happen? Brahmaivasmiti vasana haratya vidya vikshepan. That vasana which will be generated through this steady contemplation, this Brahma Bhav, that will destroy Jiva Bhav. How? Roga niva rasayanam. Like the medicine destroys the disease. In that way, this will destroy. So after meditation, after contemplation, if somebody says, oh, let me go and check if my aura has changed, if my face is glowing, if this forehead is shining, if I am seeing some special light, if I have some divine powers, none of that may happen. That is a different path of siddhis and other things. Here it is steady contemplation. My Jiva Bhava is reduced or not? Brahma Bhavana is increasing or not? Am I living with more detachment or not? Those are the results one should look for. If this Nididhyasana is done continuously, it will lead that Jiva to Savikalpa Samadhi. Now, what is Samadhi? Somebody says Samadhi means trance. Samadhi means trance. Some people say no, Samadhi means death. Because we give Bhu Samadhi, Jal Samadhi, so Samadhi means death. Somebody says Samadhi means you go into a state of high. So you take drugs, LSD and all that, you go into one high, then we experience Samadhi. So many confusions about Samadhi. Literally the word Sama means equanimous, Dhi means Buddhi. Samadhi means where the Buddhi has dropped all the pairs of opposites and merged into that self, which is Sama. Samam Brahma it is called. Brahma is equanimous. Brahman has no ups and downs, no changes, no vikar, nothing. Samam Brahma. So that Brahman in which this intellect has lost its identity, that state of awareness where Brahman alone is, that is called Samadhi. And definitely it cannot be induced by any amount of drugs. Jiva Bhav does not go by drugs, Baba. If it was so easy, then why will Mahatmas put so many years of effort to do Samadhi? Why they would have easily taken some drugs and gone into the highest state. No. We are talking about Brahmagnan. We are not talking about some stupor or some dull state of mind. The drugs will make the mind dull. It will harm the brain also. Samadhi is not going to do all that. Samadhi is going to help us transcend false identification. So literally Samadhi means the intellect has lost all the pairs of opposites, the attachment to that is dropped, the Jiva Bhav is dropped, and the intellect has as though merged in the self. That is the state of Samadhi. Now the Samadhi is of two types, Savikalpa and Nirvikalpa. So now you see here, here he says here in Vedanta Sar, Samadhi dvividaha savikalpo nirvikalpascha iti. So Samadhi in simple word also means absorption. Absorption of the mind and intellect is called Samadhi. Now this Samadhi is of two types, Savikalpa and Nirvikalpa. Now literally Vikalpa means a thought. Savikalpa means with thought or with duality. Nirvikalpa means without thought, without duality. So what is the meaning of this Savikalpa, Nirvikalpa now? So Savikalpa Samadhi, the definition is this. Tatra Savikalpako nama Jnatra Jnanadi Vikalpa Laya Anapekshaya Advitiya Vastuni Tad Akara Karitayaha Chitta Vrittehe Avasthanam. That is the definition of Savikalpa Samadhi. What does that mean? That in the Savikalpa Samadhi, the mind becomes one with Brahman, Advitiya Vastuni. It becomes one with Brahman, but it retains the duality in terms of the contemplator, contemplated, and contemplation. Jnatra, Jnana, and Jneya. The experiencer, the experienced, and the experience. Savikalpa Samadhi, the duality exists. This is called Triputi in Vedanta. The Triputi means experiencer, experienced, and the experience. Bhokta, Bhojya, and Bhogyam. Bhojanam. Bhokta, Bhojanam, and the Bhoga. That's why in Nirvana Shatkam Shankaracharya ji says, Aham Bhojanam Naiva Bhojyam Na Bhokta. I am not the three. This Triputi is not me. Then who am I? Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. So in Samadhi, what happens is the absorption of the mind happens in Brahman, retaining the duality. Now one says, how is that possible? I retain the duality and still absorb the mind in Brahman. Brahman is non-dual. And now they're saying retain the mind, retain duality and then absorb in Brahman. How is that possible? It is possible. And many Mahatmas have experienced also. This Samadhi is called Samprajnata Samadhi also, where the duality is retained, the Triputi is retained. So the example given for that is, if you see, let us say, various toys made from clay. Now suppose you see pot also, pitcher also, cup also, saucer also. Now while you are seeing the pot and cup and pitcher and saucer, you are seeing mud actually. But that does not mean that pot has to be destroyed, then only I can see mud. While seeing the mud, I can still be aware of the pot and the mud both. To see the wave, to see the water, I don't have to destroy the wave. While seeing the wave itself, I can see water also. That is called Savikalpa Samadhi. Where this mind has lifted itself through steady contemplation, Jivatma Bhava has become bare minimum, absolutely bare minimum. 1%, let us say. That 1% is Jnana, that 1% is the Triputi. Rest of it is absorbed as I am Brahman. So even though there is Brahman, one is still seeing the Triputi, because Brahman is the illuminer of the Triputi also. This I, Mr. So-and-so, what is that Mr. So-and-so? It is consciousness identified with one body, mind, intellect is Mr. So-and-so. At the moment, our full attention is on Mr. So-and-so, so the real I which is illumining this, I am not aware of. In Savikalpa Samadhi, this small I is contemplating steadily in Nididhyasan and has come to identify with the consciousness that I am that, I am not this, I am that, I am not this. So the identification percentage as though has shifted. 90%, 95% identification is I am Brahman. 5% it is still the Jiva Bhav is there. That's why it is a Triputi is there. That is called Savikalpa Samadhi. Where the absorption is with that Brahman, major part. Small part is still there. I am the meditator, I am Mr. So-and-so, that Jiva Bhav little bit is still there. So then there is a duality. And of course the duality is illumined by Brahman only. So even when one is contemplating, the absorption is with Brahman, still there is duality. That state is called Savikalpa Samadhi. Now what is the importance of this state? See, the importance of this state is that one comes to understand that really I am not this body at all. When the attention is shifted and the identification is so much with Brahman, here because we are talking from Vedanta standpoint, we are saying identification with the Advitiya Vastu is with Brahman. In Bhakti, you will see Ramakrishna Paramahamsa meditating on Mother Kali and he goes into Samadhi. Then Mother Kali remains. he is a devotee, that bhav is there, but that bhav is very minimum in Savikalpa Samadhi. Major part is Kali is real. So Samadhi makes us experience that state, that there is real, the reality is consciousness, is Brahman or the form. The world which was appearing real so far and Brahman which was not appearing real to me, now the reverse has happened. Without Samadhi, that will not happen. Intellectual information one may have as much as one wants, that this bhavana will not change. This nirvikalpa, this nididhyasan will lead to Samadhi, which changes the bhavana fully. One sees, God alone is real. It's what one has studied so far, that Brahman alone is all this. One will start seeing that there is Brahman alone. Ramakrishna at one point he saw that Kali alone exists. At one point he saw Kali in him also. He said, this is also Kali. So he was worshipping Mother Kali with flowers. At one point he started putting on himself. People thought he has gone mad. Where they didn't understand his state. Any common man looking at a person like that would think, oh, a person has gone mad, he's worshipping himself. Height of arrogance, height of ego. It is not. That person's mind has got so identified fully with Mother Kali that he is not seeing anything else except Kali. That is Savikalpa Samadhi. The bhavana is there, I am the devotee, she is my mother. But that bhavana is very less. The major part is Bhagavan alone is. That is Savikalpa Samadhi. And that Savikalpa Samadhi is very, very important to change this Dehatma Bhav into Brahma Bhav. This continuous abhyas of Savikalpa Samadhi will lead that person to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Nobody will come to Nirvikalpa Samadhi just like that. From Nididhyasan to Nirvikalpa, it will not happen just like that. It will happen through Savikalpa only. So what is Nirvikalpa? That the duality which was there till now, in a minimized form in Savikalpa, that also goes. So that's what he says. Nirvikalpakastu Jnatra Jnanadi Vikalpa Laya Apekshaya Advitiya Vastuni Tadakara Karitayaha Chittavrittehe Atitaram Eki Bhave Anavas Eki Bhavena Avasthanam. So in Nirvikalpa, what will happen? Total merging with Brahman happens. And what is that Brahman? One without a second, and where there is no duality. The Triputi is gone. And so the knower, the knowledge, the object of knowledge, all that is gone. What is there in that state? Brahman alone is. Jivatma Bhav gone fully. Oh, but so Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the highest. No doubt Nirvikalpa Samadhi is highest state, but still, even from Nirvikalpa Samadhi, one can come down, because past vasana is there. One is pushed out, just like from deep sleep. What makes us come out? Have you ever thought what makes us wake up? It is our karma which makes us wake up. Vasanas which manifest as desire, which will manifest as karma, they make us come out. So just like we come out from deep sleep, same way one can come out from Nirvikalpa Samadhi, come down to Savikalpa, and again come down to body level. But obviously the feeling will now be very different. It will not be like a deluded person earlier. Now one knows very clearly that Brahman is real, all this appearance of Brahman, and this is just a role I am playing, and all this is also roles that are being played. So the karma will make that person come out from that Savikalpa Samadhi, Nirvikalpa to Savikalpa. The person has to practice Nirvikalpa Samadhi continuously. The mind comes out of it, again one goes back into that state, again one steadily contemplates, goes into Savikalpa, goes into Nirvikalpa. This continuous practice of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when it is done, then comes firm abidance. That is called Sahaj Samadhi. That firm abidance is where Dehatma Bhav is destroyed completely. No more one will think anymore that I am this Jiva. And one does not need the complete absorption in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the withdrawn state anymore. That Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when one does abhyas continuously, destroys, Gurudev used to say in the white heat of meditation, these body identification vasanas will get burnt. They are like the laser beam, So the laser beam, when you point, it is targeted at a specific point, then it will burn that thing. So Samadhi is like that. Lakhs and crores of Dehatma Bhav vasanas will just get destroyed in few seconds of Samadhi. If you read Panchadashi, Digdasya Vivek, such beautiful explanations are given. That in Panchadashi it is said Samadhi is called Dharma Megha. It is like a cloud of values, virtues. That cloud, how it rains, positive values, virtues. That person's mind will become absolutely positive when one comes out of that state. And the Dehatma Bhav, of course, it gets completely destroyed through repeated practice of Nirvikalpa. That even when one comes out of that state now, one is still aware that I am Brahman alone. No more one needs the practice to again withdraw and go back. That is called Sahaj Samadhi. Like 24 hours, we are, not 24 hours, let us say waking time. 18 hours, we are aware I am a man. Intuitively, we are aware and all our choices are based on that, and no amount of action we do makes us forget I am a man. We don't need to remind ourselves at all, I am a man. It is there. In that way, this person absolutely abides in the self, that no more that person needs to withdraw into Nirvikalpa to experience that. That practice has ensured that Dehatma Bhav completely gets destroyed. And that person then, whether one is in the waking state or one is in the withdrawn state, doesn't matter. One knows all the time, I am that pure consciousness, I am Brahman alone. That state is called Sahaj Samadhi. So Nididhyasan, steady contemplation, will lead to Savikalpa Samadhi, where there is absorption of the mind in Brahman, but the Triputi remains in a small way. And in Nirvikalpa, that Triputi has gone completely. Then one says, if Triputi has gone in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, how did one come out of that? Just like, that's why I gave the example of deep sleep. See, in the deep sleep also, Triputi is not there. We don't experience these three things. Experiencer, experienced, experience is not there in deep sleep. Still, what makes us come out? That is called a causal body. That is the ignorance and vasanas. Subtle body, gross body is dormant, but causal body is there. As long as that causal body is there, one will keep coming. So that causal body is still there. Repeated practice of Nirvikalpa Samadhi will destroy the vasanas and destroy the avidya also. That causal body gone. Then no more one comes out, in the sense, then no more one feels I am the body. If the avidya is gone, so that is called Samprajnata Samadhi. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, continuous practice, leads to that state of Sahaj Samadhi. And so this person from Samprajnata Samadhi has now come to Asamprajnata Samadhi. All avidya gone, comes to abide in the self. This is called the state of dhyan or meditation. Then one is in that state throughout. Whether one is acting, walking, talking, eating, sleeping, one never forgets I am Brahman. Till then, till that process, till that abidance does not happen firmly, the Dehatma Bhav can overpower. And that's why great amount of alertness, sadhana is required, withdrawal is required. That's why many people who have to do this, they need exclusivity. They can't continue worldly duties and this together. Till some point one can do together. Karma yoga, etc. can be done when the preparation is required. After a point, you cannot balance. One has to withdraw. And that's why to Arjun, Bhagwan said, you are not ready for that kind of a life of renunciation. You do the duty, do karma yoga, purify the mind. But to Uddhav, when Bhagwan was departing from here, Bhagwan told Uddhav, you have done enough. Now you go to Badrinath, sit there, meditate, withdraw the mind, get absorbed in samadhi and come to realize my oneness with me. Because one cannot balance. The highest state one cannot balance. Balance is required in the earlier stages and one should do that. Otherwise one will not come to that. If Arjuna has renounced untimely and he has gone, he can't come to these states at all. He will again start fighting, he will create violence in the forest there. So he is not ready for it. Those who are ready for it have done the balance, have done the karma yoga, done the upasana, done all these steps, Guru Upasatti, Sadhan Chatushtaya, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan, then samadhi will happen. Steady contemplation will lead to samadhi, savikalpa, then nirvikalpa, then sahaj samadhi. That person is called Jivan Mukta, who has woken up to the truth here and now in this life before this body drops. And this can happen anytime. One should never give up effort. In the Sthita Prajna Lakshan, Bhagavan said, Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapya Vimukhyati. This is the state of Brahman, Brahmi Sthiti this is. And having attained this state of realization, Nainam Prapya Vimukhyati, one will never get deluded again that I am the Jiva and the world is real. Sthitvasyam Antakalepi, even at the last moment of your life, if you get established in this Sthitva, not just Jnatva, Sthitva, abidance, which is Sahaj Samadhi. Antakalepi, even last minute, Brahma Nirvanam Richati, one will attain the realization of Brahman, no more coming back, no more cycle of birth and death, the whole world only disappears. That person realizes, Arey, Brahman alone is, there's nothing else. So that is the sadhana from Shravanam to Samadhi. These are the various steps and how we have to practice this systematically. Each one will be a preparation for the next step. How beautifully our Shastra has given the entire pathway to realization with such minute details. Such deep instructions are there in every aspect of every path, in Jnana Marg, in Yoga Marg, in Bhakti Marg, everywhere. Tantra, so many different paths which are there. It will lead that seeker to the highest state. So that is where we will stop today. Any questions are there, you are welcome to ask.
Thank you again, Swamiji, for another enlightening session. Viewers, if you have questions, please put in the Q&A box and I will read it out to Swamiji. We have received one or two questions on YouTube, Swamiji. I'll just read it out.
Yeah.
The first question is, how should we control, how should we gain control over our temptation?
So, see, the temptations of the mind, the temptations, they arise because there is a certain conditioning in our mind of happiness, that if I engage in this, I will be happy, which we have heard or we have seen or we have, got exposed to. So there are these temptations which will be there because senses, mind, etc. get exposed to these things. So first thing to be done is what we call in Vedanta as Pratipaksha Bhavana. To see the painful side of that temptation first, because when we get tempted, there is an exaggerated value of pleasure we have given to that particular temptation, so the mind is distracted. It may be wealth, it may be enjoyment, it may be food, it may be opposite gender, it may be anything. We have exaggerated the value. So Vedanta first says, do the Pratipaksha. You have exaggerated and given value to certain sense enjoyment. see the painful side of it. So books like Bhaja Govindam will help us to understand that. When I see the painful side of it, the natural law of the mind is where there is pain, the mind will not go. One is intellectual clarity must be there, ki there is painful side of this, which we are blind to. When we are attached to certain pleasure and temptation, we are blind to that. So first we have to make that mind see, this is the pain. What they call as the pleasure of the pain and pain of the pleasure. I must do that. That there is a certain pleasure of the pain. If I resist, let us say, drinking alcohol. Now there is an exaggerated value in my head about alcohol. Oh, people think that if they drink alcohol, they have arrived. And they think that, they are some great social beings and whatever. And it is a great status symbol to drink and all that. Now those are all exaggerated values we have given. If I desist from this, what is the benefit? What is the pleasure of the pain of not drinking? And what is the pain of that pleasure? If I drink, what is the painful effect of that? How it will destroy the gray cells in the brain, how it will hurt the liver, how it will make me unconscious. There will be hangover, there is vomiting, there is behavior which I don't remember what can happen. People can exploit me. Now, if I put all the painful sides in one side, and the amount of pleasure that I actually get is hardly few seconds or very, very short. If I do this balance clearly, that is the first step. That is called Pratipaksha Bhavana. Second, I must have an inspiring goal that if I want to be away from the pleasure, why do I want to do that? If there is something greater in my life that I want to achieve, then my energies need to be directed towards that. Because if I withdraw from temptations, where will I direct it to? What is that greater goal in my life towards which I should direct my energies? If I have a greater goal, then I will definitely be able to harness all the energy, apply it into that, and live a life of self-control and discipline and uplift myself. For a seeker, it is moksha, or the realization of the truth. Highest goal is that. It may be even other simpler goals, maybe chitta shuddhi, maybe sense mastery, maybe mind control. It may be any goal. Even in the material world, it may be some goal. It may be fitness that I want to live by. It may be certain weight loss. It may be some, in sports, I want to achieve something, or I want to get a house by certain time, for which I have to work hard, whatever it may be. I need to withdraw the mind from the temptations and focus it on something deeper and higher. Then one can handle the temptations.
Thank you, Swamiji. We have one more question from YouTube. It's about Nididhyasana. Isn't Nididhyasanam for the purpose of correcting the habitual errors with respect to the knowledge that I am Brahman? And once the Brahmanishta has settled in one's primary nature, then isn't such a person considered as a Jivan Mukta?
Correct. So Nididhyasana is meant for correcting that Viparita Bhavana. Viparita Bhavana is the habitual error. And that habitual error is because of so many lives I'm thinking I'm the Jiva, I'm this body. So even though intellectual information and conviction is there, the Bhavana is still I am the Jiva. So to correct that error is what we do the Nididhyasana. And through steady Nididhyasana, the Samadhi Avastha, when one experiences, one wakes up to realize I'm Brahman, then of course that person is Brahmanishta and Jivan Mukta. So what we say, technically if we say in Vedant, Ajnan goes by Shravanam, Samshaya goes by Mananam, and Viparyaya or Viparita Bhavana goes by Nididhyasana. So Gurudev said it in English in very simple language. I don't know goes by Shravanam. I can't understand goes by Mananam. I don't experience goes by Nididhyasana.
We have one final question, Swamiji. What is the causal body? Is it only avidya or is it avidya and vasana? And what is the main difference between subtle body and causal body?
So Vedant is very clear that avidya is is causal body, there is no doubt. And vasanas also are a part of causal body. Vasanas are unmanifest tendencies which we have collected from many, many lives. These vasanas, they manifest in the subtle body as desires in the intellect, then thoughts in the mind, and then they further manifest at the gross body level as actions. So causal body is the cause of subtle and gross body. That's why it is called causal body. Many people generally, they don't even pronounce it as causal body. They say gross body, subtle body, casual body. It is not casual body, Baba. It is causal body. It is called Karana Sharir, causal body, because it is the cause of subtle body and gross body. So avidya plus vasana is causal body. Vasana is unmanifest, and vasanas differ from person to person, but avidya is same in all people. So that's why that causal body has one component which is common in all, which is avidya of the self. And one part is vasana, which is unmanifest tendencies. And these vasanas can be sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. We will not know what are the vasanas until they manifest as desires in the subtle body. So the only way to know my vasana is to understand the quality of the desire that is arising in the subtle body. So the relationship between causal and subtle body is, causal body is the cause, subtle body is the effect. Causal body is unmanifest, subtle body is manifest. Causal body and subtle body, they travel from one gross body to another at the time of departure from the gross body and taking up of the new body. Destruction of causal body, until it does not happen, realization of self will not happen. What majority of the people try is destroy the subtle body, saying no thought should come, no thought should come, thoughtlessness I have to attain. That will not, that is first of all not mano nasha, it is manolaya. It is only the quietude of the mind temporarily. So until causal body is not destroyed, bandhan will continue, because that's the cause. And the way to destroy causal body is only through subtle body. Through this process what we discussed, Shravanam to Samadhi, that the mind has to go through those states, then it will destroy the causal body also, and person will become Jivan Mukta.
Thank you very much, Swamiji. I think I just received one more question here. Is Nididhyasanam same as that of meditation? I think you can take this last.
So Nididhyasan is called contemplation, the practice, what we spoke about, the detachment from the BMI, attachment to the self. That process of practice is called Nididhyasan. Meditation is the state of Jivan Mukti is called meditation. Technically, I'm talking now. People use the word meditation as a practice also. They use it as I'm doing meditation, I am attending a meditation course and all that. But technically meditation is a noun, so it's a state of awareness. So process is Nididhyasan, contemplation. The result or the state is meditation or dhyan.
Thank you, Swamiji, for this very clear and very clear and concise way of clarification on various questions, and very fascinating discussion yesterday and today. And on the behalf of entire Advaita Academy and all our viewers, I want to thank you for making time and doing this session, Swamiji.
Thank you, Nitinji. There's one person, Trinath Raju, who has raised his hand.
No, that's okay, Swamiji. So,
All right.
yeah, thank you again. Yeah, thank you. Hari Om,
everyone. If anyone wants to follow, you can use the handle Chinmay Shivam, and you can follow my talks, etc. on the YouTube. The handle is Chinmay Shivam on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, everywhere. And Chinmay Mission's YouTube channel is called Chinmay Channel. So whichever one you want to follow, you are welcome. Hari Om.
Thank you, Swamiji. Viewers, with this we come to the conclusion of yet another Weekend with Wisdom session. And follow us, Advaita Academy, on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And we also have a discussion group on Facebook, Advaita Academy discussion group. You can join that as well. So with this, we conclude this session. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha.
Hari Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.